Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again for another fragrance review, and today I'm going to be talking about the one Luminous Night, so stay tuned for that. If you like top 10 lists, fragrance reviews, cologne comparisons, and first impressions, hit that subscribe button for more great content. So, one of my favorite fragrances is actually Dolce & Gabbana The One EDP, and it's had a lot of flankers throughout the years. I actually haven't tried I haven't really sat down and tried. They have the Royal Night and they have the One Mysterious Night. I tried them when I was in Harrods one time, but that wasn't really like a full wearing or a full testing. But I did hear about this one coming out, and I was fortunate to get a sample of this from Chris from over in Casual Fragrances. So I do really appreciate him sending me this. And so I got to actually sit down with this one, wear it a few times, see what it's all about. So this one is the new flanker, and I believe it's like a Middle Eastern exclusive, or this one is fairly hard to get. It's not going to be one that's very readily available, which I think is unfortunate, unfortunately. And I will get into why that is. So the fragrance itself, in my opinion, is actually really quite good. The way this one opens up is very, very sweet. Now, it does have something a little bit familiar about it in the opening. A lot of people, have mentioned Paco Rabanne 1 million. People have mentioned Leighton. And while I kind of get this familiar feeling, it doesn't really give me the actual full-on vibe of any of those fragrances. It's quite fruity and very sweet. It's a little bit syrupy, and I do get just a hint of the pepper in the opening. So, I mean, if I was going to criticize this fragrance, maybe a little bit more peppery would be nice to sort of balance out this fragrance, because it's really sweet. It's very thick, but it is at the same time very, very enjoyable to smell. Now, I actually get a hint also of the incense right off the bat, which was a little bit surprised about. It's a base note, and the sweetness is really quite strong, so I wasn't expecting to pick that up. And the thing I'll say about the incense is, this is maybe the other criticism, if I was going to criticize, is that it would be nice if more of the incense came out in the dry down, which it doesn't really. Not for me anyways. But the incense is slightly there, giving it just maybe this very slight smoky kind of a vibe. But this one, especially in the opening, reminds me nothing of the One EDP. It smells like its own fragrance. It could easily be its own thing. Now, the biggest thing is there is a fruitiness there, but the biggest note is the date note. And I actually really, really like dates, at least as in a fragrance note. And if you've smelled Camel by Zoologist, that has a very prominent date note as well. And it's actually one of my favorite parts of the fragrance. I feel like it sort of balances quite well the sweetness with that animalic nature. The date in this is also really, really good and does remind me of that fragrance. And it doesn't smell the same again, but the dates are similar. Very, very good. Really, really nice. Now, as it starts to move into the mid, I don't think that it actually changes much. Really what happens is it gets a little bit more subdued. Not quite as really intensely sweet. The sweetness does tone down a little bit. But again, the date is the strongest note, and it's very, very prominent, and it still has that sweet, somewhat fruity vibe to it. As this one transitions into the dry down, that's when it does definitely change a little bit more. I do pick up the sandalwood. There is a bit of a creaminess there, and it does come across sometimes slightly woody as well. I found, that it actually, something about the dry down gives me the impression of like cocoa and vanilla mixed together. Neither of which, by the way, are listed notes as I could tell. But there is just something in that dry down which occasionally gives me this very nice cocoa vanilla vibe, which is very appealing. Very, very nice. Ultimately, this is a nice, sensual, sweet, seductive fragrance. I think it's done really, really well. I saw somebody who was reviewing this one said it, smells like a niche fragrance. And I think in a lot of ways this could easily be that kind of fragrance. It's different, but it's well crafted. The ingredients smell high quality. And, it's weird because somebody else mentioned this gives them a little bit of vibe of Leighton with the vanilla. And I kind of agree with that, although, again, it doesn't really smell like Leighton. But there is something in this which really does give me a bit of a vanilla vibe, which, again, that's not a listed note, so who knows? But there's definitely something there which is giving me that impression. But overall, this is a really nice release, and it would certainly be one that I would consider buying a bottle of if it were easier to get and if it weren't so expensive. Because I think if you are going to ship this one, I think you can get it at Harrods or something like that. If you're going to ship it from there, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be like $200, which is, even though it does have a bit of a niche quality to it, certainly, I personally wouldn't really want to pay that for this. I sometimes see the one Royal Night on discounters, so it might be the case that in the future this one makes its way to a discounter. And honestly, if it's at a discounter and it's a reasonable price, I think it would be a really good grab. Now, what is this one good for? Definitely more of a fall winter fragrance. It's very, very sweet, but it has this nice sensual vibe, which I definitely think makes it really nice for a date. But you could wear it, out and about. Definitely in the winter. It does have a lot of sweetness. So if you are a clubber, if you like going to the clubs, could be something like that as well. Or a night out fragrance in general. But it's definitely more suitable to those cold weather occasions. And it does, like I said, have a little bit of that sensuality, which really draws people in. Now, the performance on this one is also really, really good. So the couple times that I've worn this, definitely would say this hits around the 10-hour mark, which is, for me, nothing to shake a fist at. I definitely do not complain or even really put that as a standard that's above the bar for me on any fragrance, really. So 10-hour mark, it does start off with good projection. It does radiate quite nicely. But I will say that even 3-4 hours later, this one does have nice sillage. So it's one where, if you walk past somebody or if they get into your bubble, they're definitely going to smell it. It doesn't really become a skin scent until much later. Like, once this one does hit that 8 to 10 hour mark, it is sitting a lot closer to the skin. But it definitely, it has good performance and good projection, good longevity. No real complaints there. But the other thing I'll say is, I was a little surprised because this doesn't smell to me anything like the one EDP at all. So I know really the only note that I could see that is similar is amber. And sometimes this gives me a bit of a fluffy vibe, which I sometimes get with this really rich sort of amber tobacco vibe in the one EDP. But this one ultimately smells completely different. It could be a totally different fragrance and nobody would make the association, in my opinion. I don't think many people would smell this and think to themselves, oh, that smells like the one, or that reminds me of the one. It really, really does not, in my opinion. And they're actually very different, although suitable for very similar occasions. Both can easily be worn on date nights, in my opinion. But again, I mean, the one EDP is definitely more of this sort of nice, almost airy, but this thick, beautiful, a little bit sweet tobacco amber fragrance. Whereas this one is much more of heavy on the dates, a little bit of sandalwood, a little bit of woodiness, and that nice, creamy, sweet, fluffy vibe in the dry down, which is also really, really nice. But anyways, very different fragrances, but also really, really well done. I mean, ultimately, this is, in some ways, I feel like this is what a flanker should be, although it doesn't really seem to share much of the DNA. But anyways, like I said, nice fragrance, very, very good. And if you do get the chance to try that one out, I would definitely recommend trying that one out. So I think I'm going to end the review there. But let me know in the comments down below, have you tried any of the flankers from the one or the one EDP? So I think the one EDP is still my favorite, but this is definitely a very close second. So which one is your favorite? Mysterious Night, Intense, Dolce by the one, Gray, whatever. Let me know in the comments down below which one is your favorite. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.